Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Slip Safety Show. I'm Christian Harris and my guest today is Jonathan Dempsey. Jonathan is the founder of Red Laces and he's an industry friend I've had for a number of years. He is on a real mission to change the way that we think about and perceive risk, and particularly getting away from the idea of seeking compliance. I've said many times over the years that compliance can be a dangerous word, and that's a sentiment certainly shared by Jonathan. He is putting out some fantastic stuff on LinkedIn and other social media platforms, as we will talk about, and I really think that he's somebody that you should be following, taking notice of, and seeking to engage with if you feel that he could help you in any way, shape or form. An interesting conversation we have in the interview. Jonathan's done quite a few interviews over recent months, so I tried to steer him into some topics that perhaps he hasn't spoken about in as much depth before. So we look quite a lot at his kind of starting early days in the industry and some of the lessons learned and some of the interesting things that he did. But we also get on to some of the main topics that you'd expect us to be discussing if you've taken in one of these shows before and you know what I'm passionate about, and if you've ever happened to come across Jonathan and know what his passions are about as well. Hope you enjoy this one. If you do, then please give us a like, a comment, and of course subscribe, and that way you'll be kept up to date with upcoming episodes. With that, let's get into it with Jonathan Dempsey of Red Laces. Jonathan Dempsey, welcome to the Slip Safety Show.
Thanks, Christian.
It's Mr. Social Media himself.
Talking to my partner in crime.
Exactly. We're pushing each other on to see who can outdo the other one with the most elaborate social media plans. But it seems to be working. You're getting some great engagement on your stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm seeking to provide some original and creative content, but really to engage and involve people. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think I put something on one of your posts a couple of weeks ago and said, you know, that it's such great stuff. I think it is anyway, and that's not me just because we're friends saying that. I think it is really good, and I think the way you approach this challenge of kind of the broad world of risk is quite refreshing, and you know, I think people should be taking notice of it and implementing some of what you're saying. So hence wanting to get you on here and get the message out to anybody within my audience that hasn't seen or heard of you so far.
Thank you. I really appreciate the encouragement. And I think it's as much as anything else, hopefully it will inspire other people to just have a go as well. Because whilst I bring a lot of insight and delivery from a career, actually everything I've done over the last few months through Red Laces is new. I've literally been on a journey of discovery myself.
Yeah.
I've never built a brand before. A few months ago, I'd never done a selfie video. I'd never heard of Canva or Catwing, or created a YouTube channel.
I've still never heard of them.
So so Canva is a platform that I use for a lot of the content creation. So the mental health awareness campaign that I did. So the template that I created for that is on Canva. The campaign I'm about to launch on risk, or different types of risk, will be on that as well. So Canva is the app that I tend to use for that, or the software I use for that. And Catwing is a video editing software. So that's the one. So if you saw the World Oceans Day collaboration I did with Joe Ruxton from Plastic Oceans, I asked her to send me a 1-minute selfie video that I could use. I then created my own selfie video, stripped the two together, and then put that onto a photograph of me actually scuba diving in Caribbean at Christmas, and then made it all together. So a combination of Canva and Catwing actually put that together. So again, just experimenting and trying something different.
Yeah, tech geek as well as social media king.
It's never been said before, but I'm finding new elements out of myself. I think this is just part of. It's a lot about who I am. It's always been learning. So when I did an MBA, when I became chartered in safety or chartered in environmental health, or a fellow of the RRSM, for me, I like to reach excellence in whatever there is, but to keep learning and to keep sharing with others. So coaching and mentoring has always been a big part of my outlook right from day one. So it's learning, to keep sharing, to keep inspiring. And that's where I get a lot of my energy from. So I don't get tired of keep learning. So I'm always curious. So how does this work? How do I try that? And if it doesn't work, so even like TikTok, I don't know how many businesses are on TikTok yet, but well, Red Laces are, and so that virtual coffee that you will see in the virtual cup of tea video, which again promoting mental health, one of my first posts on Red Laces, that was just having a little go on TikTok. So I've not quite got into the lip syncing and the dancing yet.
I was going to say, isn't that what it's mostly for? Yeah,
that is what it's mostly for. However, for very quick or relatively quick in phone app editing, actually there's quite a lot that you can do elsewhere to use the value. So without downloading expensive software, just coming up with something simple. And the feedback response I've had from people when, hi, pleased to meet you on LinkedIn, here's a virtual coffee, how does that make your day feel? It's gone down really well. It's just something different. So yeah, that's a big part of it.
Yeah. No, it's good, and I've obviously been kind of supporting you in terms of a bit of advice here and a bit of advice there. Not that I'm the world's expert on anything really, but other than maybe about slips, trips and falls, but in terms of helping you to kind of get up and running and push things on. And I'm excited to see where it's all going to end up. I think it's it's good. There's lots of exciting opportunities out there for you.
Absolutely. And well, it can be a very lonely place when you're starting or moving into new territories. And I've never run a consultancy as such in this way before and built a brand. So actually having people you can count on just to pick your day up a little bit, or just to give some advice, or I've tried this before, it worked for me, try that. You've been a really good support of it's also encouragement for me, and do really appreciate it.
No problem. It's good to bounce things off each other, I think, and try and stick together and help each other out. So do you want to give the audience a bit of background in terms of when we first met? 'Cause it was some years ago now.
It was it? When was it? Around about 2012, 2013? I mean, it's
probably
around
about
about
that,
around about a decade ago. And I was working at the YHA. I got in as head of safety, health, environment, and quality. Within the first month, I was asked to take on safeguarding. So I was the head of safeguarding children as well, and risk and business continuity and the like, and energy renewables and the like. And I think we met quite a few times through that, because you were YHA had already brought you in. Obviously, they'd heard about your the value that you were adding to other businesses, particularly in catering, retail, and leisure. So I can't take any credit for bringing you in, but it was great to have met your acquaintance there, and also we kind of support each other then. And I think then we kind of hadn't necessarily kept in touch that much, had we? So not knowingly, obviously there was a mutual respect there. And then I think it was either last year or the year before at some kind of safety related conference.
Trade show. Yeah,
it was like, oh, I'm going to be there, you're going to be there, should we catch a quick coffee and catch up? And then since then, again, we've been supporting each other a lot, and obviously we've done those kind of guest slot shows with James McPherson and a few others. Again, promoting, I guess, just sharing our life through lockdown, sharing insights, and just trying to create a platform. And I think a lot of what you've been doing, again, through your Slip Safety show, and James and others, is making a lot more conversations a lot more natural. And again, similar to what I've done with the mental health awareness campaign, is creating authentic and relatable content that demystifies and takes a lot of the fear and the complexity out of a lot of aspects of business life, or even just personal life, and making a natural take. Rather than saying we're taking away the stigma, actually it's just making it natural, and creating and showing the real people behind the brand. I think is really, really important. We hear that people buy from people, but I think more so, if we look now towards kind of the Gen Z, so the kind of, I suppose, 18 to 25-ish kind of age group, a lot more of that generation now are going to be looking for brands that have purpose, brands that have value. And that means it's not about rules, it's about values. It's about an organisation. 18 to 25-year-olds will not be looking for a job for life in a way that somebody maybe in the 60s or 70s and 80s would have been. Those 40, 50-year careers are no longer around. So you can only expect that somebody that's grown up with Facebook and YouTube and seeing that very fast-paced digital world is going to want to operate in that space, and they're going to they're going to vote with what they care about
Mm.
and their values. We only seen this week how Facebook and Twitter have lost a lot of advertising revenue because they're being called into question about not doing enough to deal with kind of hate crimes or different things like that. So without wanting to get political, it's very quickly the TikTok audiences now, they can vote very quickly and make big decisions happen. So if you can be on the front foot and showing that authenticity behind a brand, irrespective of what your stated core values are, it's the lived values that are going to be so much important in the future.
Yeah, that's true. And one of the companies that I do a bit of work with, as in I'm a client of theirs, is called Dent, and it's all about entrepreneurial growth and personal branding and doing good stuff. Making a dent in the universe is how they came up with their name, the Steve Jobs quote. But one of the things that they do is that they align their work to the UN global goals. I think there are 17 of them from memory. And so what they want all of their clients to kind of choose one or two of these goals to kind of say, well, that's kind of what we stand for. So it's mission led and purpose led, and it's not just about doing a slip test. It's about making the world a safer place. It's that kind of thing. It's looking at things from a higher kind of mission led perspective, which I think is great and gives a bit more purpose and a bit more authenticity to what you're doing, as you say.
Yeah, certainly. And I've been on some of their training and coaching also over the last few months on my journeys of so many different discoveries into so many different worlds. And I think the two that struck out for me, one is that learning and development, learning and growth, which again, it's a core part of who I am and what I'm about, and wanting to share and mentor through Red Lace as well. The other one is actually the oceans, protecting the ocean. So whilst environment has always been part of my DNA, right from my geography A levels and before, right from my degree in environmental health. Of course, environmental management and protection is a big part of environmental health. So even the World Oceans Day work, the fact that I would want to do this on a weekend is kind of try and get hold of Joe Ruxton, get hold of some insight around World Oceans Day and put something out there through Red Laces, because ultimately what is Red Laces about? It's a risk consultancy, or consultancy helping risk and sustainability. So why am I putting something out there about plastic oceans on essentially on a branded social media? Because it's important to me and I care. And so the things that I can do I've now got options through Red Laces to put out content that I really care and I'm really passionate about. And actually, there should be no conflict in there. So, and what I've also done recently is promote other brands. We had, to put a little plug for our friend James McPherson, this week I listened to one of his rebranding safety podcast, and it's with Dominique, who's the health and safety manager from the Royal Opera House, and the Royal Opera House kind of the noise, the civil claim that was in court a couple of years ago, I set a legal precedent, was a fascinating case for me anyway, because obviously as an environmental health officer, then noise at work and hearing protection, all those kind of things were part of what I did. So from the legal part, it interested me. The civil and criminal law have always fascinated me from day one. The fact that the Royal Opera House is obviously an iconic institution, and of course at the moment theatres and live entertainment are being punished through the coronavirus as well. There are just so many different parts of it that struck a chord to me. But Dominique's whole approach, everything she said, I thought this is. I tell you, I was envious that this wasn't a Red Laces post. It just resonated so much.
Yeah, well, she's very, very sensible. I've known her. She was in the HO for Westminster Council for a number of years, and that's how I met her. And yeah, she's eminently sensible, so it doesn't surprise me.
No, all good.
And I think the other thing around like the oceans, for example, what you could do is something like as part of your sales process, for want of a better term, explain to people, right, we're gonna for every £1 of consultancy work you give us, we're gonna donate 5p or a percentage of profit or whatever towards this cause, or whether that's in pounds and shillings, or whether that's in time, or whether it's in whatever. So you can kind of bring that wider purpose in. It doesn't affect doesn't affect the prices or the packages or the value you give to any clients, but it just actually you're doing some good on top of the good you're doing anyway, as the good work you do.
Yeah, no, thank you. Again, I'm, as you know, always happy to take on board feedback and ideas and challenge, and that's certainly what I want to encourage even more of through Red Laces is that I'm going to make mistakes. I'm trying a lot of new things and going into new ground, and I'm not going to get everything right. I'm not always going to get the tone right, but I come from a position of being authentic and I care. So if I step out of place or the tone isn't quite right, it's not intentional. And absolutely, the charities and the giving and being able to demonstrate that, I think, really powerful. At the moment, the things I already support, so I've always supported the NSPCC, both going back to my own childhood where I needed to call on their support. The Dogs Trust, remember I've got 2 dogs, Ted and Maisie, who you see from time to time in Red Laces. And of course, I'm an ambassador for Safety for Good, which is a charity that Simon Bliss of Principal People founded last year. And the purpose of that, or the purpose of him setting up that charity, was to promote the work of the health and safety professional, but with 3 kind of purposes. One is that mentoring and that coaching, which I'm mentoring in there. One is to donate to charities, and one is to give back time through volunteering. And the donations are actually split, so it's essentially an umbrella charity. Those it supports 12 individual charities. So there's the Susie Lamplugh Trust, there's Mind. I can't remember all 12, but if you go to Safety for Good website, you can see. So any donations that go into that charity are split to those 12 charities. So there's a lot that's already out there. And yeah, there's more. Certainly, I think, like say, through a sales process, I could actually start to formalise some of that with maybe even a different charity. And it could be Plastic Oceans. It could be a charity that actually just needs some support. It could actually be a mental health charity. So there's quite a few. I got in touch with somebody on LinkedIn yesterday who in Manchester he set up himself his own charity around mental health to support in Manchester, and still looking to get some support elsewhere. So it could actually, I just find, somebody in a town or a city in a charity that wouldn't ordinarily get the support and the profile it needs and do it that way. There's opportunity to do. The thing is, I actually would want to, and that's the thing. So I'm open to suggestions and ways that we can do that.
Yeah. No, it's great. I mean, so much opportunity out there, which is fantastic. So as well as being Mr. Social Media and Mr. TikTok and Mr. Canva and so on, you've also been Mr. Podcast of late. So I thought, since you've been appearing on various episodes of different shows already, we would try to talk about some stuff that you haven't been talking about already. So I think we've already done a lot of that, probably in the first section of this. But what I was keen to kind of delve into a bit was kind of your, what you're doing now is, as you've said, it's actually quite broad, and the other values that you can bring and how you can help people. But I think, a lot of your recent work, since I've known you anyway, has been very much focused around health and safety. But I know you've got a lot broader sort of background to that. So I thought it might be interesting to kind of delve into some of that stuff. So, back when you had I was going to say you had less grey hair, but you don't have many grey hairs, unlike me. But
I've got lockdown hair. Lockdown hair is a sore point. I would not normally be. Yeah, I wouldn't normally let anybody see me looking like this. I usually get my hair cut every 3 weeks, and at the moment it's gone to 3.5, nearly 4 months.
Oh wow!
My appointment is next Friday, so hair's a sore point. But taking your point, so I think it's largely been the fact that I can go into market leaders and add market leading strategy and development around health and safety is obviously part of the reason, but largely that's where the market's been in the last few years. That when there are roles out there, you go for a role that you feel you can add value to. And there's never been a role. I've never found a role really, 1 or 2 roles that actually could describe or enable me to do everything I do. So health and safety is one of a multitude of things that I can do. And I suppose that's what I've become known for, because that's what people see me doing. So back into environmental health, I mean, just to give you really a couple of examples of things I would do a day to day as an environmental health officer would be regulating atmospheric emissions from, say, steel foundries, timber manufacturers, vehicle resprayers. So when you get your car dinked and it goes to the insurance and they get it coming back all nice and new, it's been done in a vehicle resprayer with the VOCs and everything that are going out to atmosphere. So it's to regulate that. It's to regulate control of noise from construction sites. Do industrial noise surveys as part of planning applications. So one actually local to where I live, where it's right next to a railway line. And as part of the planning application, noise assessments have to be done by the Environmental Health Department to work out, well, what's the background noise levels and what would it be with the calculations and that kind of. So we're getting a lot of science involved in a lot of ways to do. From a food hygiene point of view, beyond the obvious of kind of routine food hygiene inspections, investigating food poisoning outbreaks. Quite a common one actually dealing with foreign body food complaints. So you order a box of cereal and it's got some metal in it, or you order a takeaway curry and it's got part of a rodent in it, or so all that kind of thing. From a health and safety point of view, routine investigations. So from a RIDDOR point of view, and a lot of people will never have spoken to an environmental health officer to actually find out a bit more about the mechanics of that. And as you know, one of the things I've really focused on recently is taking the fear away from compliance. And one of the ways that I know I can do this for business is because I have actually regulated the law myself, and I've used all the powers that an environmental health officer can use, which is actually a lot more in many respects than a health and safety inspector, HSE inspector. Because HSE is only doing health and safety. I used to regulate food safety under the Food Safety Act, environmental protection under the Environmental Protection Act, and health and safety. So because I know what the law is, and I know what the powers are, I know what they can and can't do, and stuff, but I know what the role of the regulator is, I can take that away.
There's a lot of misunderstanding, isn't there, between, there's a lot of, in the sort of health and safety gone mad brigade, they'll be talking about, the HSE is going to come and do inspections on us, and which obviously that doesn't happen. It's in the HO, and there's a misunderstanding about what things do and what powers are, and what steps can be taken against you. So I think it's really important to get that right.
Absolutely. A takeaway message I want all of your audience to take away is that if you act with integrity and you show empathy and you're curious, you have nothing at all to fear from any regulator. And actually you won't then need to focus on compliance, which for me is a myth anyway, and it stops conversation and it's not helpful, and it creates fear. It creates, focus on compliance leads to transactional activity and closed questions such as, are we legal? Are we safe? Are we compliant? And as you may have seen from the 5 tips on communication I wrote for the IIRSM recently, the first one I put on there was ask more open questions. So, what more can we do? What should we be focused on? How can we involve others in the conversation? What would we need to, what would an organisation moving forward be focusing on? And if you're acting with integrity, then you're going to want to do the right things. And if you're showing empathy, and that means you care about your customers and you care about your employees and your contractors and others. Well, then you're going to want to do the right thing. And if you're curious, you're going to start to ask the questions, which will then lead you to the answers. And then you only have to take something like suicide prevention in construction. If you look at suicide prevention in construction, very macho environment. Are we legal? Are we safe? Are we compliant? Are we doing what we need to do? Yes, I'd better not say no. But how are we tackling mental health and stigma around mental health and suicide prevention, which in construction is very, very high?
Massive, yeah.
Massive. But then you look at somebody like Danny Schoolthorpe, who rugby league legend, who again a friend and supporter and fan of Red Laces, is one of our contributors to our mental health campaign. Does an amazing amount of work in that world. That's his area now of specialism. And as an ex-rugby player who's gone through so much pain and challenge himself. So actually hearing somebody who's 6'4" and built like whatever somebody you call it, to listen to him, he can inspire people. So, but and you could bring him in and do a talk, but you would only do that if you were a company that was acting with integrity, showing empathy and being curious. If not, you'd be focusing on compliance. And as we know, and I know from your listening to your earlier Slip Safety show this week, where you're talking with one of your guests about sort of the disinfectants and are they useful or not, and the laws and the economics and all the politics goes behind that. You have to bear in mind that there are fewer and fewer HSE inspectors around. There are fewer environmental health officers around. So if you're aiming for compliance, you're aiming for the minimum standard. You're aiming for the bronze. If you're on an Olympic podium, you're aiming for bronze. The law can only require a minimum standard. It never requires you to be a good company. It doesn't require you to be an excellent company. It requires the minimum. So if you're aiming for minimum and you don't get it, if you aim for bronze and you don't get it, you're not on the podium. And that's not a place to be. For a company that might aspire and say to its customers, our values are integrity, innovation, customer first. It needs to resonate, and it needs to be consistent.
Yeah, and I think if you from a business perspective, no CEO and no board and no chairman and so on is going to sit there and say that they're not aspiring to be great, but yet there often is this disconnect around being great in certain aspects of the business, but not necessarily being great when it comes to risk management. And I think that's something that we've got to try to bridge. We've got to try and build over that gap somehow.
And now a word from our sponsors.
Hi guys, sorry to interrupt the flow of the show, but I wanted to give a very quick plug for our sponsor, which actually is me and my business, Slip Safety Services. As you'll have gathered from tuning in, we're passionate about three things: slip safety, cleanliness, and hygiene. If any of those topics float your boat and you'd like to learn more about what we do, the outcomes we help to generate for our clients, and how it all really works, then please visit our website, slipsafety.co.uk/start. There you'll find a raft of information, from articles to videos to white papers to self-help tools, and you can start to delve deep into the rabbit hole of the world that we populate, which is all about making the world a cleaner, safer, more hygienic place. Cheers. Because it's so, I was interviewed on a podcast, and it was about risk management, and Anthony, who interviewed me, was asking about career in the field, and I said, although I'm not involved in the broad piece of risk management, my perspective is that it's actually massively fundamental in terms of how any good business is going to be run, because you get to touch on every single aspect of the business and influence it and drive it and try and get it to be as good as it can be. But if you don't invest in that function, then it's impossible to do that.
Absolutely. And whilst I agree, I don't see risk as a function. So if we take health and safety, risk, by and large, I don't know how, maybe share what comes to mind when somebody says to you health or safety, or what comes to mind when somebody says risk. For me, it's about avoiding a negative. It's about control. It's about status quo. It's about a functional team or activity that often sits in a silo. And my experience of going into FTSE 100s, FTSE 250s as director of health, safety and environment, or in risk consultancy roles, whatever, my experience almost without fail is that these teams, and a lot of teams, act in silos. And one of my strengths is being a strong collaborator, and it almost seems a bit too easy. So when I go to an organisation, I start linking teams together and start to bring in a more strategic approach to some of these issues. It's almost a little bit concerning that it's so easy to do, and that it's actually treated as the comment will come, this is like a breath of fresh air. We never thought about this before. So, well, why not? Some examples, you tend to have. Think about a board report. So sit on an operational board meeting, and you might start off with an opening address from CEO or whoever's running the meeting. You might have the operations director who gets praised for meeting all the operational targets, or beating through all the operational targets. HR director will go through kind of sickness, absence, and employee related things, whatever. And almost certainly, quite often, it may well be the HR director that has to give an update on the health and safety. The last 2 or 3 slides of the report, more than likely, it's going to be accidents, incidents, and RIDDORs. And then it'll be, so what's your safety manager going to do about this then? Because this isn't very good. And of course, safety isn't the work of, or safety statistics and numbers are not the remit of the safety manager or the safety team. It's the whole business. But it's seen in those very transactional ways, as opposed to, let's understand risk at a strategic level. So rather than starting with compliance and the rules and the bad things happening, let's change the narrative. Let's start with the brand. the strategy for growth, our operating environment. Of course, all these things change and they're iterative and the transient. And from that, then work out what is our main risk portfolio. Now, if you're a student accommodation or you're a hotel provider, then of course sleeping accommodation is going to be major. So their fire safety has to be up there at the top. Security might be up there, and certainly in the last 3 to 4 months, if not before, cyber security should be way up there at the top. Food hygiene, if you're a catering business, or food hygiene stroke infectious disease control type things. If you're a caterer or a food manufacturer, have got to be in there. Contractor safety, a massive area that's so overlooked. Again, something I put some content out recently about how many. I put a little poll out on LinkedIn. How many businesses have got feel they've got the right level of capability to proactively monitor contractors and monitor the contract safety on site? I've yet to work in or go into an organisation where I've seen a business proactively monitor and manage contractors as a strategic activity. Actually, proactive. I don't see that happening at all. I've actually been in an organisation in the past 12 months where there was a contractor working on site on a mobile elevated work platform, a MUPE for short, so basically a cherry picker, working at height, and let's say it was 25, 30 metres of height, by a loading bay, a single person working alone, in the vicinity of a forklift truck that was operating within 2 to 3 metres. That same forklift truck had actually been colliding with some of the pallets. When I spoke to the contractor who was on this cherry picker, and then just had a little chat, no airs and graces, just, hi, how you doing? How's your day going? What are you working on here? Just installing some new cabling. Okay, yeah. Just you? Yeah. Well, it's supposed to be 2 of us, but the other guy couldn't make it today, so I've come by myself. Okay. And have you signed in? Have you got your work permit signed off, and you know where you need to go, and you've got the help if you need it? Well, no, there was nobody on the front desk when I came in this morning, so I've just come up and I'm only going to be here for an hour, so I've just come straight up. Yeah. So this guy, it was a 2-person activity, so he shouldn't even have been allowed to get into the warehouse, let alone get up on the cherry picker. He hadn't even signed in. There was no work permit in place. So that is obviously the worst case. But it's such a big area that's overlooked.
And he's acting with the best intentions because he just wants to do his job. So he probably thinks he's doing the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. But these things are going on all the time. Yeah, and it's not to say, and I don't go in to do inspections and audits, and I certainly don't go in with a clipboard. Generally just go in and talk to people, just talk to people where they are and what their experiences are. But like I say, it's the closed questions. So I didn't go say, have you signed in? Have you got your name badge? Do you know the rules? Tell me. Yeah, it's like, just go in and talk to that person, whoever they are, as a person, and actually just be human. And just try, because that way you're creating trust and openness and finding out what the real issues are. Yeah. But then the senior leaders and the board need to be able to take this forward. And this is why one of the key hashtags, and for this risk campaign I'm going to run next month for Red Laces, one of my hashtags is risk, opportunity, growth. Because of course, when you think about risk as being a negative or something to control, that isn't what Red Lace is about. For me, it's about understanding strategically what the risks are and what the risk profiles are, and bringing in the professional and the technical expertise as you need it, but actually linking that right back into the heart of the business, the strategy and the brand. And therefore, because we're on the front foot, because we've taken away any fear about compliance, and we're no longer trying to avoid a negative, and we're not in that place of fear, which is holding us back. We're in that place of collaboration, we're acting with integrity, we're being curious, and we're being acting with integrity, showing empathy, and being curious. So that's creating a conversation, that's creating the environment for collaboration. People can open up, and then we start to find opportunities which then for growth. So, and obviously your insights into the insurance market recently, if we're relying on insurance to be able to outsource our risks, that option is running out fast. If we're relying on compliance, which is only a minimum standard anyway, and there's hardly any regulators to come in and enforce those legislations, it means that even taking away the fact that things might happen that are bad, that's not even the point. You're missing out opportunities for growth. And now, particularly post-lockdown, what's going to be the USP? A business that had a USP 12 months ago, in a post-lockdown world, that just may not work anymore. So how are we going to unlock new opportunities for growth? And some of that is now going to be a shift in mindset and a shift in thinking and an engagement of the whole business.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I think if you look at, smaller companies like ours, risk is actually a positive because you're taking the risk of setting up, and you're taking the risk of investing in marketing, and you're taking the risk of, going to this presentation or doing this phone call, or, you know what I mean? It's kind of, all businesses have to start with risk being a good thing. Otherwise, nobody would ever start a business.
Yeah.
But yet, the bigger you get, it sort of almost morphs into risk being turned into the negative side of it, because, we've got to here and we don't want to be falling backwards, or we've built our reputation and we don't want to be losing it, or whatever it might be. And it's counterintuitive, because actually you think you would be dialing up that positive side of things and trying to grow and scale and expand and do more good stuff in the world, rather than sort of flipping something off and turning it around into being a negative. I don't know does that make any sense, or?
Yeah, no, absolutely, it makes sense. And I think what you described there is almost a traditional model of organizational development, where actually almost an industrial model of this is what happens. You get beyond a certain number of people, then you create departments, and those departments then start to wade in treacle of the bureaucracy, and it starts so. And I think many of the bigger organizations around grew up in those times. I think if you now look at, say, a Red Laces or the businesses that you've started up, actually starting up with some of these different mindsets in a 2020 post-lockdown world, maybe we won't see organizations grow and develop in quite the same way in the future, or at least if they do, more connected and more collaborative.
Yeah, let's hope so. I mean, I think the point you made about silos is one that I always tear my hair out, because I see what I call kind of horizontal and vertical silos within a business. So I think horizontally, by that I mean, the health and safety team doesn't necessarily work with the facilities management team or the retail team or the whatever, and they're kind of doing things with their own P&Ls and their own goals, and they're not necessarily joining in the middle for a collective vision, mission and purpose. And then vertically, I kind of see a big disconnect between the board saying health and safety is our number one priority, and then the shop floor, where you see things such as, I can think of an example. I wanted to order these spill mats, but my regional manager said I couldn't order them because they're 20 quid a piece, and he wouldn't give me the budget. Whereas I know in my pub that these are the most effective way of tidying up and preventing somebody from having an accident, which could cost the business 10 or 20 grand. But I can't spend the money, and there's that disconnect between what the board says and what actually happens on the shop floor. And so you're kind of getting this mishmash of problems horizontally and vertically. That's kind of how I see it anyway.
Interesting. We're seeing the same things, and I don't think we're surprised, because the number of businesses I've been involved in or worked in, and the roles that I've had, that I see it everywhere. This is what I see. And if you've seen the same from your perspectives as well in the disciplines you're involved in, then essentially that's what we describe as business life. So how do we break out of that? And there's so much around health and safety, our number one priority, or safety first. I would love to have conversations with businesses that come out with these slogans to say, well, actually, what do you mean by that? Because as somebody who's had, well, obviously, I've chartered in health and safety since 2005, chartered in environmental since 2003, but I was regulating health and safety in the late 90s. Even I don't use the term health and safety normally in common parlance. In a role, in an organisation, I don't use the term health and safety. I don't even use the term compliance. I've only started to use it recently through my social media, because I'm recognising I need to talk in a language that my audience is talking, that people understand, to be able to then bring them into that. So, because when I first started, again, this is something I learned very quickly with Red Laces, that if I start to talk about the values that I want to bring, no one's going to find my content. So
because they won't, until
they'll be searching for it. So
exactly, because they haven't thought of it that way, and therefore they're not looking for it. So you've got to kind of meet people where they are.
Yeah, so that's the only reason. So if people heard me, and it's counterintuitive, and I have to force myself to do it. But if people see, and I didn't used to use hashtags, but if you see me using the hashtag compliance, it's not because I'm promoting compliance.
No.
It's because I know there will be people who'll be following the hashtag,
yeah.
who I want to reach to give them an idea of this is not helpful.
Yeah. You need to start the hashtag compliance is crap.
that could work, couldn't it? Again, I would just need to get people then following that.
Yeah.
So I think this is where I've kind of found myself. Yeah, again, it's been a journey of discovery over the last few months, because I know, predominantly where Red Laces is pitched as a consultancy is for medium and large organisations, where I can come in and really help their strategic development around risk profile as part, so I can sit down with the C-suite, so it's part of or contribute, support the C-suite at a strategic level. Use my MBA credibility and my charter experience, all the other bits and pieces, and dial up or dial down the technical part as much as necessary. But I've also recognised recently is that particularly small and medium businesses, and particularly through lockdown, actually the here and now is that fear around compliance. The here and now is around how can we be COVID fit, how can we be COVID secure, and that is a genuine fear, and it is a genuine worry for a lot of businesses, and I can help with that. And of course, having been an environmental health officer where day in day out for 7 years I was in small businesses, morning, noon and night, that was where I started. So I can operate at both. And then what I thought, well, how do I link the two? Because it almost sounds like a disconnect. I can be supporting FTSE 100 C-suites, and I can be supporting a small regional hotel or a bakery or a butchery. And actually where that's taken me to is, and you may have come across it before, have you heard of the safety culture maturity model? It was something that was created by the HSE and Keele University, I think about 10 years ago. And there's probably other maturity models around, so there's nothing particularly new. But essentially, it's looking at a level of maturity of an organisation across a certain number of factors. And if you imagine a factor of, say, 1 to 5, or a score of 1 to 5, at a level of kind of 0 to 1, this is around compliance. So either we are compliant, let's say at 0 to 1, but maybe we're not even compliant. Level of 1, we're not compliant, we're just about compliant, but we're doing it because of the rules. We're doing safety because we have to. It's a very command and controlled silo mentality, like you've described. If you imagine a level 5, you've got an organisation which is very collaborative, very progressive, very strategically aligned, very values driven. And you've got people being very innovative. So there's a lot of innovation in ideas. Actually, people are encouraged to come up. So you can imagine they don't even know the word compliance. It's just not part of where they are. And somewhere in between is kind of where a lot of businesses will be. And certainly a lot of market leading businesses will be in probably 3 to 4. So I think what I'm looking to develop over the next couple of months is a kind of a Red Laces maturity model, which will focus more on different types of risk. But it's not so much the numbers or the title. It's more around what would it feel like if we were level 1? What's the language I would hear? What would I see? What would be my experiences? And therefore, how can I tell? So if you were to walk into you can obviously by sector, but if you were to say walk into one office block, so you're going to meet a CEO for one health club, to talk about your services, and you're going to see of another one, and you go in through the buildings, let's say before COVID. So you go in there, you go through the reception, how are you greeted, what does the environment feel like, you hear people in the corridor, what are people saying, how does it sound, is it positive, you get a sense, don't you? You get a sense. There's things you sense naturally without even anybody telling you anything. And it's some of that, it's cultural. So this is where it's not about rules, it's not about regulations, it's actually about culture. And actually, therefore, this is why I did these tips the other week on communication, because actually it's about culture, it's about leadership. So one of the models I've used, I've put together some health and safety strategies over the last couple of years, one of which was rated 5 stars excellent by the British Safety Council in an audit they did 2 years ago. But essentially, whilst risk is a big area of my focus, actually it's not a risk activity that I'm looking at. Where I actually look at is an interplay between leadership and culture, the governance, the risk management, and then the measures, the measures or the insights of, so how do we know where we are and where we're going on something like that? And it's that strategic interplay between all of those. So whereas a lot of people will talk about compliance and rules, I actually use the term governance.
Yeah.
And I use the term governance as something that's much more neutral, because compliance obviously can invoke fear. It starts to make people think about rules. Governance, we need governance, but actually then it's the emphasis on making sure that governance is fit for purpose, that it's proportionate, that it's agile, and it's responsive enough. But of course, that also ties back into the leadership and culture. So, I've worked in organisations where I've gone into an organisation where they had the best health and safety policy I've ever seen, and it was better than anything I've ever produced. And I've written lots of safety policies, and hands off straight away. This was a really, really well thought through, great health and safety policy, but actually it didn't take more than a couple of days or weeks to realise that it bore no resemblance to what was going on in the organisation.
Yeah.
So therefore, there was a disconnect between the governance and the leadership and the culture. It meant nothing. And as time went by, the business evolved, the policy didn't. So you're better to have something very short, very tight, very agile, but that reflects the organisation. So all those things need to be into play. So a bit like your rotas and your chimes, and you've come up with some really good methodology, things that are really that resonate and really get across those messages. Then I'm looking to develop and basically download from my head these things that actually are just the way that I've always done business, but I've not until recently started to actually get them out.
Formalize it into a methodology and stuff. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because you're sitting on again, to use a Dent expression, a mountain of value from your experiences over the years. But it's about how do you get that out of your head and into something that's actionable for your clients to use. And that's kind of that's what I've been trying to do with some of the stuff you mentioned. And I think that's clearly the journey that you're on, and I'm sure that'll be coming in due course.
Yeah, sure. And things, I'm not a natural salesperson. I'm very much at the end of as you can tell, at the spectrum of caring. As an environmental health officer, I used to. I spent a lot of time when I was at Redditch. I was a principal environmental health officer at Redditch for a few years, and as part of that, I used to look after all of the care homes. There was about 23 or so care homes, nursing homes and residential care homes. I used to look after for health and safety. So I say look after, I was their environmental health officer, so I regulated health and safety and food safety in them. Apart from the nursing homes, which were HSE regulated. But one of the things that I did, even back in those days, one of the things I did was I recognised that some of there were small businesses. So I said to them, how would you like it if we did an afternoon with the local EHO? And they're like, well, that'd be really good. So what we did, and I didn't say come into the town hall and sit down and feel like you've been brought to the office. I said, right, if I can get one or two of you with the larger care homes in the borough to volunteer to host this, what we can do is have a couple of afternoons where I will come in, and we can have a few teas and coffees and sit down. I'll bring some leaflets and guidance and whatever, but we'll have an afternoon where we can just sit and chat and talk about stuff, and you can ask me questions. So you'll basically get free advice. Ordinarily you'd be paying consultants for. But ultimately, I am your regulator. So if you've got a question, it's going to be me that's going to be doing your inspections or taking the actions if it goes wrong. But actually, I'm here to help. So I did that. And similar with the fast food chain, the fast food chain in Redditch. And I went out to investigate a riddle with them. And the riddle on the form, it said somebody had injured their hand with a toaster, a bun toaster. I don't know if you know what a bun toaster is, but I was thinking like something on, like you make toasted bread with or something. When I went out there to investigate it, I realised it was a town centre store, so a mid-terrace, let's say, second storey. Over the back of a second storey, from a storeroom, they'd taken something which was, let's say, the size of a photocopier. Size of a photocopier, but you get the stainless steel, aren't they? Weigh a ton. So two members of staff had got this bun toaster, so it was called, from a storeroom on the second floor. They'd taken it out into a kind of little balcony area. They'd tied some ropes to it, and then they'd lowered it down to what was, I suppose, almost like a patio area on a roof out on the first floor. And as they lowered it over, the weight of it slipped, and it crushed. Well, it had trapped one of the person's wrists against the metal and nearly broken their wrist. But never mind, it nearly broke their wrist. That would have killed somebody who was under it. And underneath it was the area where all the staff used to smoke. That was their smoking area. So this could have just landed on somebody and killed them.
And why were they moving it?
I don't know why they were moving it. I don't know how they came to do it. And I think this isn't where you start to say, so tell me about your training then. Because clearly these fast food chains don't train their staff in rope techniques for lowering something that weighs, a lot of kilograms over. It's just not something they would do. So anyway, I spoke to the owner of the franchise about it, and we did a little through the store and the walk-in freezer where there was in there and whatever in and around there. So we had a conversation, and after an hour, what you've taught me in the last hour, and he said, and your approach, which I really, really value, because I know that we've done wrong, said, if you can come back and spend an hour or half a day with my 3 franchisee managers, my kind of other store managers or whatever, I'll make sure they sit there and listen to everything you say. Okay, so that's what we did. So we basically, I did some consultancy for them for a couple of years. Whereas every 3 months we went out and spent half a day together, so basically taking them through some coaching. So what did the first, and I'd never done any of this before. I was just finding new ways to coach them and teach them. Bearing in mind they had a head office support, they had all their risk assessments, all their policies from head office, but they weren't getting the support from that, and they didn't mean anything. The risk assessments just didn't mean anything at all. Yeah, so the first one we did, I said, right, we're going to look at accidents. So I took, let's say, the 3 main risk areas for their accidents. So one would be slips and trips, one might be burns and scalds, one might be work equipment. So I said, for each of the managers, before I come out, I want for one manager to look at slips, trips, or one to look at burns and scalds, and one to look at manual handling. So go through your accident book for the last 12 months, look at each of the actions you've had that fit in the category I've assigned you to look at, go to your risk assessments that cover those activities, do a little bit of reading around it, and we'll talk through when we come back. So that's what we did the first one. And then each time we kind of, I just took them on a journey, and I was making this up myself. It wasn't an accredited course, just using insight. And after about 6 months, one of the managers got promoted, and he got promoted to the area manager for Coventry and Nuneaton, and sort of those kind of areas. So then he started to take some of this learning to his area manager meeting. So all of a sudden, the insights that I was giving and the coaching I was taking them on, they were now taking around their business.
Getting amplified,
But it meant something because I was engaging them in something they could relate to and making sense of it all. So all the things I've always had a consultancy type approach within what I've done to help and coach and mentor people. Yeah. But from a care point of view, as opposed from the sales, of course, now Red Laces ultimately it's a consultancy. It's a business. It's a business and needs to do both. But it's always going to have that care and that heart right at the start.
Yeah. Great. Well, Jonathan, there's bound to be, listening to these great stories and all your insights, there's bound to be some people that are going to be interested in having a chat with you about getting some of this consultancy. So what's the best way for the audience to get in touch?
So redlaces.co.uk is our website. So straight away from there, you can get access to all of our social media links, all 5 channels. And also, if you drop me an email, Jonathan at redlaces.co.uk or info@redlaces.co.uk, you can get hold of me there. But certainly for now, as well as obviously looking to provide direct business to clients, engage with our content because there's lots of useful content in there. I want to get people involved.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Well, thank you very much, Jonathan. Really enjoyed it. Always interesting, always insightful, and look forward to catching up with you for a coffee soon, as and when we can start travelling around the country again.
Thanks, Christian. I really appreciate your support, and I'm going all the best for you as well.
Cheers.